As someone who's drawn a lot of portraits, both from life and photo, there's something I used to really struggle with when drawing headshots: constructing the head from imagination. And over the years, I was able to overcome the issue, but after I published the video on the basics of the Loomis method, which you can see here if you want, I was suddenly reminded of my frustrations as a beginner. It's because it starts with a sphere. And most of the tutorials on head construction out there start with a sphere because, the cranium is kind of like spherical. Or is it? Not really. So today I want to share with you what I think is a better approach to constructing the head from scratch so that hopefully you can level up your head drawing game and get to those juicy parts like adding details and making your characters look alive. Let's go. Okay, so the widespread idea is that to construct the head, you just start with some sort of sphere, wonky sphere, even if it's a perfect sphere. But that presents a major issue. How do you tell the orientation of a circle? Okay, because at the very beginning you just have a circle. So how do you tell the orientation? You can't. So while you might be able to lop the sides if you have enough knowledge of perspective in 3D, so something like that, okay, lop the sides. And then I try to figure out where is the middle line exactly? Like how do I get it not off? Because the first line I did here, this is off. This is wrong. Okay, this is off. It takes a huge effort to figure out where, and this is probably still off, where the center actually is. Probably better than before. But this is hard. Okay, it's really difficult to tell. And then after that, how do you figure out the angle of the jaw? Because we didn't really have a perspective system. We can drop it down like the Loomis. Like, how do you figure this out if you don't have prior knowledge of boxes and perspective? Would you? You really can't. And if you have an up tilt, that becomes even more complicated because, well, how do you do that? That's hard. Like, how big is the cranium? Have you ever tried to draw a skull seen from the bottom? That's basically just this, right? So this is really hard. It's unnecessarily hard using this method. So thank you, Andrew Loomis, for giving us a stepping stone. But now we gotta move away and find a better solution. And what else? If not, wait for it. Wait for it. You can tell what it is. A box. What else? If not a box, wonky box in this case. Before you run away, wait a second. Let's see why it's actually better to start with a box. So the first advantage is that when I draw a box, and I'm literally doing this in real time, because you can see even if I make mistakes, it doesn't really matter that much if it's a box. So see, I draw a slightly squashed box. I can cut it more easily, so I can give it slightly a little bit of a actual head shape. The first big advantage is that we can tell where the center line is very easily because we can bisect this and we can get the center line. So now we know how to make the face symmetrical, which is really important. Now, yes, I can hear those of you in the back row saying, oh, but actual heads are not really symmetrical. I know, but mostly when you draw a head, you want it to be fairly symmetrical. Like, you don't want to draw an eye that's like that, unless it's some kind of weird character. But in any case, so from here, we can basically just keep modeling. Now, modeling is one of the basically three big components of drawing, together with rotating and knowledge, obviously, of the things that you want to do. But let's say there are two main components that are modeling and rotating in space. And this makes it very easy to do because with a box, it's very easy to change things. For example, we can morph this into something that's a little more like a head. Look at this already. Now, obviously, the chin is not this wide, so we can probably choose a point around here and maybe make it less wide, something like that. And because we do that, obviously, we would have to connect this side too, we can start to slowly change this. We can choose to divide the front in thirds that are the thirds that you use to later establish features. So you get your hairline, you get the top of your brows, the brow ridge, and then you get the bottom of your nose. Then you add your ear back here. It's roughly in the middle where it attaches, roughly, not perfectly. We can keep changing that, and all I'm doing really is just taking a box, like any random peasant box, and cutting pieces away. Sometimes I cut straight, sometimes I cut a little more curved, but it's very easy to do. This is literally just modeling, cutting away from boxes, and as I cut, I can also start adding stuff. Like this is not, think this is a head, this is not an actual head, but I can add, once I know my center line, then I can extend it and say, okay, well, I want a nose here, a very pointy nose. But it's literally just building these little like Lego bricks. Am I allowed to say Lego? I could ask my manager. Once you do that, then you start realizing, yes, the head is more complex than that. But the basic, the gist of it is this. Because once you have that established, and I can probably, it's better if I don't go on top of that. So let's say I go here. So once you have that, right, this is going to be a very wonky box. So once you have that, you can go a little more gestural, obviously. Right, you can start adding more features and adjusting them as you go. So we know that the front of the brows, it's not flat, right? It's not this, but it's more like this. So maybe I can account for that. I can also introduce my Asaro or Riley rhythms, right? I can start, changing and fixing depending on my proportions here, how I want the head to be. So slowly, using that box, I already have my center line. So I can just literally, slowly, I know where my side plane is. I don't need to chip anything away. Too big, no problem. We drop down the jaw, we connect it here in space, and we know that all this surface is still side view, right? We cut this here, we cut it here, cut. And this is way easier than it would be if I were to use the sphere, because literally once I have my center line and I have my front plane and my side plane, I can build everything else on top. Not only, but look at what I did here. So this face is a little off. Now it's too long, this cheek is too big, and I was going off here, like I was about to draw my mouth tilted. But because I have the indication of my box, and I can even use a different color probably, I can now check that my mouth is in line. And yeah, it's probably a little too low, so I can change it. And thank you, digital. I can make sure, because of those initial guiding lines, I can make sure the perspective, if you will, or the three-dimensionality is in check. And I can use this to construct everything. So I can, little by little, I can go ahead and fix the wonky parts because of that initial setup. And it would have been much harder to do with a simple sphere, because the sphere does not give you enough information for you to set up that those planes and the more correct proportions. And you can basically take this to a finish at this point. You can use it as an underdrawing, or you can literally start as you progress and then your skills get better. You can start with maybe just an indication of the shape of the head. That's like shape design. You incorporate that, but you still have the idea of that bounding box somewhere so that you can use it. See, I'm still thinking in terms of that box to inform basically everything that I built here, right? Obviously, at this point, I don't really need it anymore. I've done enough. But together with the Riley rhythms and starting with those more boxy forms, I can crank out a head real quick. And this is very flexible. Like you can really turn this into whatever you want. It doesn't have to keep the standard proportions of the head. So that's pretty much it. Use boxes to make heads. And if you want an exercise, I would say try to do this a few times. Maybe use this as a warm-up. If you draw characters, if you are into drawing characters, you start with a simple box. Then around the middle, you cut it down for the chin. You get your center line. You start chipping away until you get comfortable enough. And you add here to get more forms. You play around with boxes, cutting them and adding to them so that in time, hopefully you develop an understanding of the three-dimensional space that surrounds the head, and you can draw it intuitively. All right, that's it for today's video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, leave a like and subscribe, and check out this other video as well. That's going to help you tremendously with your box drawings. All right, till next time, good luck and take care.